All right, so this video, I'm going to go ahead and sort of clean up our scene here. I'm going to take this entire chair and I'm going to hit Control and then J, and that's going to put this chair all together here. And you can see it has two materials, the pillow material and the chair material. And I'm going to go and export this as an FBX. And I'm just going to do it in that same environment scene in our pillow house. I'm going to make sure copy is on, and I'm going to uh, save this as chair. Actually, yeah, let's save off a FBX copy. That's what I'm really doing here. And it looks like we have one in there, so I'll overwrite that. And then I'm going to save this, save a copy, and let's see, file. So I think a faster way is we hit Control or Command C to copy this to bring in another scene. I was thinking about maybe there was an export to Blender, but I think this is the easiest way. And then I'm going to open a fresh Blender scene. So here I am in a new scene. I'm going to hit Command V and let's go to our chair. And then let's see if those materials transferred to. Yeah, they did. And then I want this chair to be at 0, 0, 0 in my scene. And remember what I was telling you, like I want my pivot point on the bottom. So shift space, move that up just on that green line. And then what I'm going to do is move my origin to cursor. So you can do shift S for that. And it's, let's see, I think it's, let's see, is it cursor to world origin? I know here we could do set origin to 3D cursor, but I thought there was a way to do that in here. You have to forgive me. I'm still, okay. So I want to texture the wood of this chair. And I think what might be cool is we've talked a lot about hand painting and texture painting and sculpting. Let's go ahead and, oh, looks like I forgot to, well, we'll texture those as well, but let's make a procedural material just for the wood. Okay, that might be kind of cool. And that's sort of bring you back in, because the truth is when you're texturing something in 3D, it's a mix of different things, procedural textures as well as like baking and ambient occlusion and stuff. So let's go back and let's bring in our shader editor here, and let's we have a couple things. We have this chair here. We have all this other stuff. You can see I can create a new material here, and that's called chair 01. But for this one, I'm going to name this wood, and I'm going to delete this. And oh, when I had it selected to create a new material, so that's why it kind of bogged down. So let me go back a little bit before I created it, because when I went to new material, it also applied it. So I'm going to click off of this, make a new material, and then name that wood. And then delete this. Oh, it looks like it still applied it. Let's go back in here, material. Actually, I don't even mind because I'm going to reselect. Yeah, so it replaced it. Do you see that? But I can always hit plus, and I can add that chair material back. And if I move this up on the hierarchy, don't tell me I have to reapply this. Oh, because I'm missing the, am I missing the texture? No. Interesting. Oh, it also applied it to the whole surface of those elements. Okay. Anyway, let's work on this wood material. And then what we'll do is we'll select the individual faces and apply the wood material there. And then maybe we'll bake it out. And for that, we're going to have to separate all these pillows because it's going to also bake that out into the texture too. All right. So let's go ahead and hit Shift A here. And what I'm going to do is just type noise, and we're going to add the noise texture here. And for this, we're going to be using this. If we hold Control and Shift and click on it, you can see on our model what the end result is going to be. And for this, we're going to be using this to create sort of with a little bit of help, the lines that make up the wood texture. And I'm going to uncheck normalize here because I'd like to have a little bit more of a, this shape, showing through. If we do normalize, it kind of blends it out a little bit. And it's also kind of, if you look at it, you could see kind of where the white veins are. And this is going to give us a little bit more, again, of that shape that we're looking for. All right, and I'd like a pretty high level of detail with this, so we could do 15. You can see that gives us a little bit more of that roughness and that shape. And again, with a lot of this stuff, as we get to the end, you'll start to see this come together a little bit more. And I might bring just the roughness up a little bit, give me a little bit more of that noisy detail. We'll always tweak this. We can always tweak this a little bit later. Make sure my scale is still at 5. Okay, so I'm gonna duplicate this, Shift D, and this is what I'm gonna use to make my rings. So let's do like 8 for the scale, 11 for the detail. My roughness will do 0.5. Turn normalize on. And then let me kind of get in here a little bit. For the distortion, I'm going to just kind of see maybe 1.5. Again, we're going to play with all of these different values, but you can start to see now we're getting those lines that make up the, kind of like what the wood would have, and when we put these together later, you'll see how they start to come together. Now I want to grab all the UV information from here so that we could use that with this, our model, because we did the unwrap anyway. So Shift A, we want texture coordinates, and then we need mapping. We're going to go UV to vector, move these over just a little bit. And then I want to add some color here, so I'm going to add a mix node here. And then Shift D. I'm going to duplicate this mix node and place it here. You know what, actually, I think I'm going to use a mixed color instead. And that way we can just control the color boxes. See how they're here instead of having to type the values in? And now let's put another one over here. And actually what we could do, instead of using the UVs, we could use the object instead, and then we can bake the texture onto the UVs that we made. And then from there, we'll, and then we'll be able to look at it procedurally, which means it gives us it looks good at any angle on the object, and then when we bake it out, it'll look great on our texture. Okay, so let's put this into here. Let's wire this into here. It's kind of take a look at our final result. You can see it's the blending of the two there, right? We're starting to get those swirls. Actually, let's put this into color 2. I don't know why I put it into factory. And then you can see here I'm holding Control and Shift. I'm clicking on it to let us see the end result. And so, because this is going to be into color 1, this mapping here, and then this noise texture goes into here, and then this one goes into color A. And then we're going to take the color from here. We're going to make that our color into the A slot. We'll use like a ramp node to kind of to start placing the colors. So if I place that on the end, you can see that's sort of our swirly pattern. All right, so let's go ahead and stretch out our coordinates on our, let's see, let's go to this noise texture here so we could see it. So we do that through our scale here. So let's see, we do 0.2 and then 0.2, and let's see, 1.5 here for our scale. Let's leave this at 1. Well, let's see, I don't know. Because the higher we go, we get a little bit better, more lines, more of those ring lines. So let's try it at 1, and then we could always play with the ring lines later by playing with the scale. Because we're also able to adjust a lot of this stuff later on. And something else I'm sort of looking at, let me crank this up a little bit, is I'm looking at the direction in which this wood is going, and I think it's fine if it's going this way, but it's because it's moving nicely across this surface here. Let me see how that looks with my UV really quick, because we could always rotate our UVs. I kind of like that. And that looks more like woods following the directions of the UV map. So we'll switch between the UV and then the object itself and see how that looks. I mean, we could also switch these, like say we made this point 2, and then we made this 7, and then we left that at point 2. You could see now it's moving in a different direction. And if we kept that at, instead of UV, we did the object, we won't get that seam. So you can play with these different values. I mean, you can make this point 2, and then say on the Z, we wanted the lines to be more vertical. So I'm going to undo that a bunch and just go back to the original one that we had, that original setup. So something like that, 2.7.2.2. All right, now I want to just see how this will look down the line. So yeah, that looks pretty good. I mean, it's fine. Maybe it's a weird. Here, let's do this instead. Let's do point 0.2, point 0.2, 2.5. About 2.5, point 0.2, point 0.2. See, that's looking more like wood then. Yeah, let me stick with that. I mean, if you like the way yours looked before, sorry about the confusion, but this is really where I'm adjusting it to see how it'll look more like wood. And like I said, in the end, we'll do a quick switch between the UVs and the object. I like the object better. All right. All right. So we got that. Um, let's see what else we got. What else can I show you that's not, that I haven't talked about? Okay. So there's this factor here where if I go to left and right, this is your blending factor between these two. So the higher I go or the lower, and I'm going to leave that at 0.5 for now. We'll manipulate that more when we get more of the color information, which we'll get to in a bit. Actually, let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to hit Shift A, type color RAM, and then we'll wire this right into the base color here. So you can see this is just giving us, this color information. And then if we take our mix and we drop the result into this factor here, you could see now how it looks on our final model. And we could adjust, if I move this around, you can see, come on, we could adjust kind of the levels of the brightness and all that good stuff. And we can also use this to adjust color. I also want to multiply these values. So let me kind of bring that node in. So let me bring this more like this. I don't think it's going to be that confusing. All right, so let's tweak these colors a little bit. So this one, I'm just going to go with a brown. So something like that. And then I'm going to, let's see, duplicate this. See if I can just, oops, grab this. And then I'm just going to copy that for this color here. And then just kind of shift it over just a tad bit. And take note of where my positioning is on this if you like what I have, or if you want yours to be more cartoony or more colorful. All right, I'm going to do one more here. I'm going to bring this one to the middle. And then for this color, I'm going to brighten it up because that's the wood that goes in between. I kind of want to stay in the same color family, but it'll make this a little more mute. I'm just kind of seeing how I really want that to pop. And maybe this one, again, we'll play with the values. It's looking a little bit pinkish instead of, there we go. That's looking more. We got to keep them in the brown family. I'm just sort of riffing here. I want this dead in the center. And then this will be a copy of this color. So copying that, and then I'm going to paste it in here. And then we're going to go even lighter. Come on. Actually, I like that. I'm going to kind of play with these values here. So it's giving it more of a natural wood tone. I'm kind of, so the gradient should be like light, dark, darker, darkest. All right, so that's pretty good. Again, if you feel like that's too dark, you can kind of lighten up your wood a little bit this way. Um, Add more or less red, give it more of a brown tone. All right, we're getting there. So I was thinking about multiplying another like set of texture nodes on top to give it a second layer of like surface detail for the wood, but I think this is good for now. Um, because what I'd like to do is, yeah, it's just essentially, yeah, show you how to bake this, and then we would paint over the UVs anyway, like scratches and nicks and all that good stuff. So I think this is a pretty good place to stop with the wood texture. So I think what we'll do right now is, um, you know what, if we hold Control and Shift and click on your end node here, this is what your final wood's going to look like. So it's going to look pretty good just right there. And we could actually take our color and even place it in the subsurface. See if we could expand that out. And let's kind of move all this in a little bit. You know what? I think that's good. I was gonna use the second subsurface to control the color, but we have that going on here anyway for the different parts of the wood. And we could always adjust inside of here our roughness if you want it less or more shiny. And yeah, let me just show you really quick. Let's save this. And let's save this. There we go. As chair. And I'm going to go to documents. Or actually just save it wherever you like. I'll save mine on the desktop for now. And then because we're going to export it anyway, save as Blender file. And actually, let's just bake it in this video. So let's go over here to output and let's make sure that sorry, we want to go to render. We want to make sure that we're on cycles. Let's go down to bake here. I don't want selected objects there. I want, let's see here. We have influence here and we don't want combined. We just want the, let's see, diffusion layer. All right, so right now, if I go to let's see, rendered, you can see there's all this shadow information, and it'll actually bake the shadows of the cushions onto the chair, and I don't want that. So I want to hit, let me go back to material preview. I really just wanted to bake the color, so I'm going to uncheck direct and indirect here. Now, because we're using multiple materials, like we have this cushion material, we have that on our object, we need to actually add a image texture node. And then inside of here, I'm just going to open up that texture that we had earlier for the chair, the cushion. So that was environment alias, and I believe that was in chair. and then this is chair albedo, and I'm going to go ahead and hit open image. And I want to select shift and select both of these when I go to bake this, so that it knows that I want to bake to this. All right, so let's actually go to texture paint here. You can see here's our chair, and let's see. Let's go back over here, and there's our bake settings, color, and the size. We don't necessarily have to keep it this high. Like this is the size of the padding of the texture on our UVs. Let's see, are we not showing our? There's our faces. Here's our edges. There we go. So that's the padding around this. And so anyway, with our chair selected, and we want to make sure our we are in object mode and our chair is selected, or inside of the scene. And actually, even if let me try just selecting this. I don't know if we need to select that. Just hit bake and see what happens. All right, and then let's go back to texture paint here, and then you can see here that we have that wood baked on there. It's on the texture itself. So if I go to image, image save, and then the real test is when we go to export this to um, um, Unreal. So let's go to, sorry, a little bit of a brain thing there. Let me do file, export with that chair selected, export FBX. And I want to make sure auto is on copy. I want to make sure this is down. Selected object, apply transform. And I'm going to go to desktop, my environment alias, chair, and I'm just going to do a chair FBX there. And I'm going to export that. Now let's jump into Unreal and see how that looks. And I did not get the import pop-up when I first opened it, so I might have to do that import one more time. So if it doesn't pop up right away, like, or you missed the chance, because I did have it pop up on my screen, but I didn't click it in time, you can always just go to import here, click the button, and then navigate to your, where the chair is. So it's actually in here, but it just didn't import. So let's go to environment alias and then locate our chair. And there's our chair. And then I just want to make sure materials is on, textures is on, and I hit import here. And it's importing. Are you sure you want to override? Yes. There we go. And there's our cushion. Here's our chair. And it did not save over the chair albedo unless it was in a different material folder. So let's go back into Blender here and go to texture paint here. It says chair. Oh, it's named chair. So it's called chair. And there we go. So let me do image, save, and I can even do image save as, just in case there's naming conflicts. But we could name this chair. Yeah, chair albedo was good. Let's try that one more time. And let's see, auto save, and the material disappeared. Let me drag this into the scene here. And I'm gonna save off another variation of that chair texture in Blender. Hit F to focus on that. It makes rotating a little bit easier. Let's try that one more time. We are in Blender. I'm going to do image, save as, and I'll name it wood chair, albedo, in case we have a metal chair or whatever. And PNG is fine. I mean, we can even go JPEG because I don't have anything transparent, so I don't know if it needs to be. It's the PNG, so I'll save that. Let's go back to Unreal. And we might have to import that. It's interesting that probably because I've left Unreal open for quite a while in between. So here's wood chair albedo. There's that texture. And then let's go to our wood material here and get rid of all of this extra stuff and just wire that into our color. Apply and save. You can see there's our wood. Now let's take a look at, now you already know how to do this technique that I taught you where you make the cushions, right? But I'm going to show you, I'm going to do a quick hand painting just to show you that we'll repaint these in Blender, save it, and it'll update here. Right, here we are in Blender, and these are my cushions. So let's say I want both cushions to be similar to this red, or something. Obviously, we should be using reference, but let's go with a nice complementary, like maybe a little bit of a darker green. And it is painting it black, so let's make sure we pick the right one. There we go. It's painting those in. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint a stripe down the center there that is going to be maybe a, I don't know, a red. Wrong one again. All right, so we got a little bit of a designer. I forget what designer it is that uses that color. Is it Gucci? Is it? I forget. So let's save that and let's go back into Blender or in Unreal rather. And let us, let's see, re-import maybe. There we go. And you can see we got our texture there. And yeah, so there's our chair. And again, you can go into Blender and like add little dings and cuts. And if you like that, like we added a little bit of personality with that cushion there, we can add another one down here. We could add this guy up here. If we get rid of that cushion on the floor, we make the cushion a separate object, like I was telling you before. We could just kind of duplicate the cushions as much as we want. So maybe we place this here. Then we rotate that around like that. But you could see with just the very few little things we were able to do that. So I want you to take this week, really polish your final project, get it done. And I think this is it. I'm going to keep making more videos, but you just have to get the chair and then the house textured. I want to finish the roof. I wish we had more time than 8 weeks to work on this. But I'm always here. Reach out to me, and I'll keep working on this as well as the other tutorials. And I hope you enjoyed the class so far. And I hope you're learning a lot and you're really thinking maybe being a tech artist or environment artist, is the way to go for you.